We're back already, just a mere few days after all of that. That was the first half of Tyler Perry's Beauty in Black. I made a video talking about the first 8 episodes and letting you know that we will be going into the second half of the season with another 8 episodes. If you would like to check out all the convoluted garbage that is taking place up until this point, feel free to watch that first video because you will be very, very lost in this one. Probably would have been lost anyway, but it doesn't help. But before we get started, hello. I'm Kendall. New around here, welcome. Not new around here, what is up, home skillet biscuit? And I like trash. And one of the places that I know that I'm gonna find something, if not entertaining, certainly something to talk about. I always know that I can go to Tyler Perry for that. I have complicated feelings about Tyler Perry and his work, but I will say, as I've said in the last one, that his moments in which he is the most entertaining is when he's making soap opera. I love soap opera. I think soap opera is great. I think it fills in that cathartic gap when you want something messy, but you don't want to destroy your own life because, you know, consequences and whatnot. Something about watching something so chaotic when I'm just about to be on my period, it does something for me. It helps me live out vicariously the destruction and chaos that is just at the edge of my fingertips that I want to see without having to ruin my life personally. And so I do think that engaging with Beauty in Black is best when going into it thinking of it as a soap opera, because that's what it is, right? That's what Tyler Perry makes. And if he makes those, you know, sure, we've told him to like tell other stories, but at this point it's just pretty clear that he can't. So might as well enjoy the soap opera and less of the like law dramas he's also tried to do in recent years. But again, if you want to know everything that has happened thus far, you check out that first video. This is actually my third Tyler Perry video in a row, which was not on purpose. It was completely incidental, but hey. And the video I did before last time was on his new movie Duplicity, which is bad in the other way. Like, it's not bad in like a messy, oh, this is still entertaining type of way. It's just bad. So sit back, relax. This is probably going to be another longer one, and enjoy the ride. And while you get your dinner ready or your laundry that you're folding, I'm going to send it over to Admiral Kenny to pay some bills. Thank you. Hello everyone, this is Admiral Kenny, and today's video is sponsored by Raycon. Raycon Everyday Headphones, switching it up, are the perfect gift for Mother's Day, for your mom, or for you. And their latest model is better than ever. 40 hours of battery life and comfortable ergonomic design so that you can wear them for hours. Speaking of battery, they also have a quick charge function that gives you 2 hours of battery in just 15 minutes if you want to hurry up and get to going. But the most important quality I find in an over-ear headphone is noise cancellation. There is nothing more annoying than going to the gym and you're trying to block out the sound of mall pop, but you can't because you don't have noise canceling headphones. It's very important. And do you want to be in the ad too? And it's incredibly difficult to find headphones that are this noise canceling under $100, but Raycon is somehow able to do it at half the price of other premium audio brands. And there's no point in not trying because there's a 30-day happiness guarantee. So if you would like to try out Raycon, go to buyraycon.com/Kennie20 for 20% off site-wide. Big thanks again to Raycon for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get on to the debauchery. Episode 9, Blind Rage. If you recall, I said in the end of the last video that this season was recorded in 2 parts, and I didn't know that when I was watching the first 8 episodes, so I thought the first season abruptly ended very dramatically, but apparently it was because there's going to be a second half. So, body dead as and they just leave her body there on the ground, and Kimmy leaves to go find her sister that Body and Delinda had trafficked, if you recall the last sequence of events that have been taking place. So I don't remember if I mentioned it in the last video because I might have accidentally skipped it, but after hearing that Kimmy and Angel were let go by a judge that had been in cahoots with Jules, Horace seems to know exactly who that is. He reaches out to the judge, and it is a man that looks like TD Jakes. So I'm sure he has a real name in the show, but in my notes he's TD Jakes. And so he's TD Jakes as far as I can tell. So Horace calls TD Jakes And he's like, hey, have you talked to my brother, Norman? Because he's like, are you in cahoots with Norman? And the judge is like, no. He lies. Because soon after that, he calls Norman and he's like, hey, your brother is calling around. Norman tells him, hey, go meet with him. You can do that if you want to. But also, I'm mad at him because I believe that his sons had something to do with my wife's death. And Judge T.D. Jakes is definitely concerned, scared, and doesn't want to walk into an ambush, but Norman insists that he goes. Meanwhile, everyone else in the family is sort of reeling from Charles's death. Well, except for Olivia, who is too busy fucking a man who's a third her age and half her libido. They say when you're on the tail end of menstruation, it gets very, very real. They say 30 horny is a thing, so I can't imagine it isn't at 60, double the 30 horny, one could say. Gross though, because he's, again, like a third her age. The conversation that they have is honestly very confusing. There's this wrench thrown into the mix where we learn either in this scene or later through context clues that apparently the men who went in to rob Horace and got shot, right? They were actually not, as we thought, working with Angel. They were actually sent in by Olivia to rob Horace's safe house for some reason. Apparently it's confusing to the boy as well. The boy she's having sex with, a like 25-year-old dude, because she has so much money. What is she robbing her ex-husband for? But the guys that were sent in were actually in cahoots with this 25-year-old that she's f***ing. Apparently she's doing it because she feels as though something is up with the will and maybe she'll get shortchanged, whatever. But eventually Mallory does call Olivia to tell her about Charles's untimely death. And immediately she believes that Norman did it. Mallory calls Varney and tells him about the death. And he takes it hard in a way that is a bit befuddling to the family. Because sure, him feeling like, oh, my condolences makes a lot of sense. But his intensity of grief is confusing because that's just your client's son, supposedly. But as we know, as the audience, they've been f***ing him and the now deceased son. Jules goes to the crash site and him and his crooked cops talk about what was found on the site. They found Charles's watch and there's an engraving on it that shows that it's from Varney, which is a little intimate for your lawyer. Like, what's going on there? Jules calls Norman and asks if he had anything to do with Charles's death. Norman basically says, yeah, and I don't give a f***. You killed my wife. Olivia, though, is a real one, and she's the one that's ready to retaliate immediately. Now, back to Kimmy and Angel. They are driving in a car, and their car breaks down. And so they go to a shop where Angel is able to get a hot car from a chop shop. And while she's waiting on him to get that settled, Kimmy calls her mother. I was about to say this conversation is a mess, but honestly, all of the lines are a mess. But this one's particularly rough. It's very drawn out and a lot of repeating themselves and also having like conversations that aren't related to the thing that was just said. But basically, at the end of it, we get that Kimmy believes that her mother sold her sister to body Jules, that whole area, into trafficking, and she believes wholeheartedly that her mother sold her sister. Jules goes to Horace and Varney, who just happens to be there, and tells them that the car was targeted. It didn't just blow up. It wasn't an accident. It was targeted. It was shot up and it exploded. So it was definitely a targeted attack. That's what happened. Olivia finds out about it through her quote connections and comes to the house with everyone else, and she's very distraught. She's really upset. There are certain lines that are just confusing.
Be something different, Jules?
No,
you're not, because you ain't got no balls.
Someone, I think it was my friend Chibi, we were watching it, and she brought up how the cursing in this show also feels very foreign. Like, these people have never cursed before. And I think that, along with the sex stuff, is very like, yeah. And like, I don't want to sit here and completely ridicule a man who seems to be trying to figure some stuff out. But also I am. I also, because he made garbage, and I'm going to talk about how bad it is. So I can be empathetic and a bully. No, she's bullying billionaire Tyler Perry. Oh no, what are you gonna say anyway? Now, tensions are high, but that still doesn't explain this conversation thread through all the people, because Roy suddenly is like, yeah, I bet y'all mad that I didn't die. I'm like, bitch, ain't nobody talking about you. But he makes it into him like, I bet y'all disappointed that I wasn't the one in the car. And Horace is like, I mean, yeah. And then Roy is like, both of you were trash parents. To prove him wrong, Olivia throws a dagger at his face, but she said she missed on purpose. So that's how you know she loves you. Granted, she does say next time she won't miss. So balance. That's what great parenting is all about. Now, despite the high tensions and emotional outbursts, Mallory definitely thinks that this was a good situation, you know, because low key, it will result in us getting her and Roy getting his shares. I mean, it could be worse, but we're getting more money. One could ask, why is Mallory even involved still with this family? Like, why not get divorced? She hates Roy, she hates the family, yada yada. But there's something involved in the share breakdown that if she gets divorced from him, it doesn't work in some way, or she gets significantly less money. So, or Roy gets significantly less money. There is definitely like a very practical, emotionless reason why they stay together. Back to Kimmy and Angel. She ends up calling Rain and tells her about how Body and Delinda kidnapped her sister. And honestly, this is very confusing. I do not understand what's happening. She doesn't want Kimmy to go to Horace's house, so instead she gives her Delinda's address. And she's like, I know how crazy you get. Don't do something crazy. I'm like, she just stole my sister into sex trafficking and I already killed one. It's wild giving me her address, but thank you. Back to the family. Mallory goes to Varney and asks him to get a suit for Charles's funeral, offering him a spare key to go into his apartment to get it. And Varney accidentally divulges that he already has a spare key, which she found strange. But he was like, oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. He told me where it is. It's fine. Granted, it is kind of intimate to have your family lawyer go into the deceased's home to get a suit for the funeral, but whatever. What happened to light-skinned girl that don't have any other part? But this is all for Mallory to witness him being a little bit more emotionally engaged or emotionally affected by this death than theoretically someone who's just working for the family kind of dispassionately should be. Or so she says, like her reaction says that. He doesn't really act that off the reins that much. He's just like, man, this is really messed up. And she's like, hey, Varney, calm yourself. But once he goes to find the suit at Charles's house, he also finds Charles. Charles isn't dead, because that would be too predictable. I mean, I knew he wasn't dead because that would just be too easy. He was also the only like kind of interesting person, like as a singular entity in the show. What had happened was he had met up with the guy at the strip club who was trying to come over his house. He drugged him, stole his watch, stole his keys, and stole the car. And so the person that was actually killed in that hit was not Charles. It was the guy that stole the car from the strip club. Rip to him, I guess. So after hearing that someone did die and it was supposed to be him, he's like, damn, my uncle really tried to kill me. That's crazy. He doesn't seem that affected by it because that's just the nature of their family. They don't give a and are cool. It's surprising that so many of them have lasted this long if they hate each other that much. But he's like, you know, my family don't give a about me. I don't really care. Varney's like, no, they care. They're upset. And he's like, okay, they can keep thinking I'm dead then. This episode ends with Kimmy going to Delinda's house, asking about her sister, threatening her like, hey, tell me where my sister is, with a shotgun? I could have missed it. I probably did. It's a lot going on in this show. But where the hell she get a shotgun from? That shit spawned in like a like The Last of Us. You finding bullets in a refrigerator and shit. Like, what the There's a tussle. An angel comes in there to break them up. And he's like, hey, just tell us where the sister is. And she won't do it. She starts saying some shit about her getting SA'd by truckers or some shit. And so Kimmy shoots her in the face at close range with a shotgun. So that bitch dead. Surprisingly, Angel isn't too, because that's not how shotguns usually work. There's a spread. But yeah, that bitch dead. She dead as dead and gone. Dead as hell. Episode 10. Power struggle. Mallory goes to Jules and they want to collude to figure out if they can pin Charles's murder on someone else, a random criminal. No, actually, my bad. I got confused because this conversation is directly after talking about how if a family member kills another family member, that's bad. So I thought they were referring to Charles. Actually, no, they're referring to the wife's death, getting ran over, so that the shares will stay within the family. And then soon after that, Jules would also find out that Body has been killed and she just in the street in a parking lot. And so he goes to find her. He finds someone who's like visibly an addict. His name is Debo. This is only the second good actor in this entire show. Well, no, T.S. Morrison kind of did her bag. She actually did her job. So okay, three people did pretty good. But Debo is an addict who lives also in the motel. And he said that he witnessed the whole thing and that she was run over by Kennie. After getting this information from a man who's a little bit twitchy, he says, this is the perfect person I can try to pin Charles's murder on. He's like, hey, I'll give you some drugs, hella drugs. You get high as hell. We're gonna have a good time. I'll give you some money. And he has Calvin with him, actually, Jules does, to bring him to the place that they're going to stage him being the murderer. Eventually, Norman does make himself known. He comes to the house with all the other family members and they're like, did you kill Charles? And he's like, did you kill my wife? This then disintegrates into going back and forth where Horace says that he got his wife from the mail.
I loved her. Love. Nigga, you got her from the mail.
And that she was a mail order bride, and that if you gonna get a mail order bride, the least you could do is get a young one. You got an old bitch sent through the mail. Oh my God. And just as things are getting real hot and things are boiling over, in comes Charles with a little swagger. He's like, hey, everybody, it's nice having the family all together. And though he isn't dead, Olivia, still feeling that Norman had something to do with it and attempted at least, she says that's all she needs. It's war, mother. So in comes Jules with the random crackhead. I'm sorry. We don't know he's a crackhead. And even if he is, I shouldn't call him random crackhead. His name is Debo, okay? Debo the crackhead. So Jules brings in crackhead. I'm so sorry. Okay, Jules brings in Debo. And he's basically forcing him to say that he was trying to rob the house.
I got video footage from the highway of these two stealing. Then they come out the road speeding.
AI footage? That makes no fucking sense. But they don't question it at all. Norman is old. He don't know what the AI is. And he's like, okay, I want that head. And they're like, no, we gonna handle him. Don't worry about it. He's like, no, I want him dead. I want to kill him with my bare hands. I want to see the life leave his eyes. And I'm like, oh. It's like, you already got me cleaning up quadruple homicide at the hospital from before. I'm gonna need you to stop getting your hands dirty. Fair. Speaking of homicide, after committing her second homicide that we know of, Kimmy is like, let's go to my mama house. Like, if I'm just having a day, I might as well have one. Bang, bang. So she goes to her mama's house. She sees that she has a new car in front of her trailer. This is like her final evidence that she needs that her mother sold her sister into trafficking. So she comes in, she argues back and forth with her mom and her boyfriend a little bit, and then it turns into her hitting him with a cast iron pan. And much like anytime I've seen someone get hit with a cast iron pan, particularly in Tubi movies, usually, that don't kill him, that don't even incapacitate him. It's barely a scratch. He's like, that's inconvenient. I guess it's adrenaline, I don't know. But they tussle and Angel eventually goes in with the shotgun that the magically appearing shotgun. He was like, come on, Kimmy, let's go. So that's the end of that. Judge T.D. Jakes meets up with Horace and lies to the judge that his son Charles was killed last night. Again, he knows already that he's alive at this point. He's been seen. Horace tells him to let him know if he has had any contact with his brother Norman. He's like, no, what are you talking about? I ain't talked to him. It's fine. And so Horace is like, okay, let me ask you again. After you get yourself a cigar, he opens a cigar box and inside are cigars, but also a stick of dynamite. Horace tells him to put the dynamite in your mouth in a sados, semi-sexual, vaguely phallic. And he's like, I'm gonna light this shit on fire and blow your head off, which is wild because this is an enclosed space. Where are you going in the time? I mean, also he could throw it. You ain't running away fast enough for that shit. Regardless, he's like, I'm gonna blow your head off if you don't tell me what's going on between you and my brother Norman. And so he says, I know that your brother bought a strip club and some car washes to launder money. And yeah, there's also some indication of maybe some human trafficking type shit. And he's like, okay, cool. And then he stabs him in the hand and lets him go. He was like, I could kill you. See what I do next time, bitch. Calvin, for some reason, finds Delinda dead. And so he calls Jules and he's like, hey, ayo. And so Jules is like, yeah, clean it up. Jules then tells Calvin to find Kimmy, rightfully assuming that she had something to do with it. Horace goes to Varney. It feels like a bunch of telephone, don't it? Because that's what the show is, but just keep up with me. Horace chats with Varney. And for a second, I thought he was going to try to Varney as well.
You took Beauty in Black and you...
I know what I did.
Sorry, sir. You don't need to kiss a man's ass, son.
Yes, sir.
Unless you're into that kind of thing.
But instead, he goes into a whole speech about how much he hates his sons and how he's like, if Roy wasn't married to Mallory and if he were broke, he'd be sucking dick in a bathroom or a fix. Disgusting. The internalized homophobia is strong with this one, and it will not save you, sir. But anyway, he wants Varney to look through his father's will to make sure that if he dies, Horace, that his sons don't get any of his shares. Like, how does he go about that? And essentially, he says the only way that wouldn't happen is if you were married, honestly. He's like, interesting. Roy goes into Mallory's office. They fight like they always do. Again, I edit out. There's no point in talking about every time they fight. But he says something along the lines of like, I might just jump out the window. And she's like, okay, well, that one doesn't open. So, but maybe if you get a running start, you can make something shake. Up. But it's also pretty funny. I'm not gonna. He, instead of jumping out the window, starts grilling her about who she's having an affair with, which is wild because up until this point, it's just been her asking over and over again, who is he sleeping with? Who knows who he's sleeping with? Yada, yada, yada. And he's like, I can smell him on you. And then right after saying that, he runs into Calvin and starts sniffing him. And he's like, you the man that's my wife. And I guess just to make him uncomfortable, Calvin's like, nah, actually, I'm more attracted to you if you want to get something shaking. Like, but that just makes Roy feel uncomfortable. And he's like, don't ever talk to me like that again. Which, side note, having an affair without the other two people knowing and having sex with both of the people in the marriage is kind of a flex. Like, that's a book you should write. How I the wife and the husband, and neither of them knew, and then they both find out, probably mad at each other. Wait, isn't that already a book? Is that Bryce Heads Revisited? I never read it. Maybe? I don't know. But it's a flex nonetheless. Anyway, Roy does more booger sugar, calls Kimmy in, and he's like, yeah, let's and Kimmy's like, cool, I'm gonna go see him because I'm gonna get information about where my sister is. Episode 11. Up against the wall. Against the wall. Cash my check and fuck my job. Like she should. I should make more music. I'll get around to it. Anyway, Jules' men also find out about Delinda and assume that Kimmy did that. And so he wants his crooked cops to find her and bring her to Jules. Okay, back to the family, particularly Olivia. Now, remember I told you I was very confused about what is going on with her and this young man. Again, we were under the impression that Angel had people come in trying to rob Horace, but now we are learning that, again, that wasn't him. His dudes didn't even show up. Olivia had found other people trying to rob him. She had sent her boy toy to send other dudes in there to kill him and make it look like a robbery, but since he isn't dead, obviously something ain't go right, and she seemed to think that her boy toy betrayed her. So she kills him by telling him to get inside of a plastic bag, and then they just shoot him in the bag. You can't mess up my carpet. Like, they Reynolds wrapped him. Sorry.
Foods don't touch the pan, so you don't have to clean.
No! Easy cleanup. All you have to do is throw away the bag. Varney lets Horace know that if someone is convicted of a felony, they forfeit their shares as well. There's a lot of rules and stipulations that apparently Horace and Norman's father put in his will, believing that the family was crooked and would always be crooked. So he needed to do things that would disincentivize them from killing each other, literally, and like having addictions essentially, and doing felonies. So now that he found out that his brother is laundering money and his children are always on coke, he's like, hey, Varney goes to Charles and tells him that his father is asking a lot of questions about the will. That's something you should probably be a little interested in, concerned about even. He warns him to be careful because he thinks his father is trying to get him out of the will. And Charles doesn't seem to take that too seriously because, in fairness, he doesn't seem to take much seriously. So it's just one of many things he doesn't take seriously. The lawyer, remember that case where the remember when this was somewhat about business? So the perms that give everybody cancer. Apparently the class action lawsuit has now risen to 64 plaintiffs. But Mallory does not give a She's like, I ain't giving you a cent, bitch. And being that she's the only one that actually runs the company, really, if she don't care, it's not happening, most likely. The cops pull over Angel. He is arrested because the car is hot and there's a gun in the glove compartment. But the cops that pull him over are Jules's crooked cops. So they don't take him to jail. They take him to a mysterious place where he ends up seeing Horace. Horace has some things he wants to say. Judge T.D. Jakes talks to Norman and he's like, yo, brother stabbed me in the hand. And for some reason, he felt the need to tell Norman, who also goes to him and he's like, did you tell my brother anything? Are you working with my brother? And he's like, no, I didn't tell him anything, which is not true because he told him that he was laundering money and had places to wash said money. And Norman is like, I don't trust you, and he threatens to kill daughter in college if he finds out that he's lying. He can't catch a break, can he? Mallory tells Calvin to follow Roy, afraid that he's going to go meet with the lawyer that's suing them all for cancer and is going to mess everything up essentially because he wants to be seen as the leader of the company. And Calvin kind of resists it at first because he's like, I am your security. But she was like, are you telling me what to do, bitch? I hired you. But because this is like a power grab, so he gives her own panties and tells her if it upsets you, you can wipe your tears with your own dirty drawers. Okay. Jillian, who? Bitch! Somebody in the comments reminded me who she was. Jillian. My God, the lore is so deep on this channel. Y'all remember the Passion Flicks movie Wicked and Torn, which is the sequel, which I've done videos on both. I did not recognize Jillian, but she is the black bisexual best friend to the witch girl in Passion Flicks. And this is happening too many times to be a coincidence that black actors from Passion Flicks are ending up, or vice versa, ending up in Tyler Perry works, okay? Put my tinfoil hat on. There's something going on here. It's deep lore, baby. Anyway, Jillian goes up to Calvin and apologizes for being crazy or whatever the fuck she's been doing, and he don't care. She's like, okay, then I'm gonna tell her husband that y'all and he's like, I don't give a if you're gonna do it, just do it. Stop talking to me about it. And again, as an audience participant, every time she's on camera, she's talking about threats she's gonna do, how terrible of a person she used to be, and like how she's gonna be the bitch that she used to be, yada, yada, yada. And every threat is so hollow because I'm like, bitch, who are you? Oh my God. The crooked cops bring Angel to an abandoned garage. That's where he sees Horace. And Horace talks to him about how he was going to put him and Kimmy into that house that he tried to rob. But he betrayed him too many times. And Angel keeps apologizing. He's like, I just want a better life. And, you know, I did try to steal from you twice. But at least the second time, my didn't even show up. Like, dude, I'm just trying to get out this life, man. Like, you could still put us up in the house if you want to. Horace then asks Angel about Kimmy and particularly her trustworthiness. And he's like, yeah, she's very trustworthy. Like, the only reason her and Rain got caught up in this life was because of him. You know, he was the one that kind of influenced them to get a little bit into a life of crime that led them getting caught. And then Jules got them out of trouble. And that's how they ended up here. Varney, again, concerned about Horace asking a lot of questions about the will, goes to Mallory and tells her that he's doing so. And on his way out, she sees behind him Calvin looking inside. And as like a kind of, again, power grab, she goes to hug Varney a little too familiarly to make him jealous, only for her husband to see it instead. And he comes in, guns a-blazing, accusing her of having an affair with Varney. He fires him and rushes out, and he's like, what the f? I didn't do anything wrong. And she's like, it's okay, don't worry about it, keep working, ignore him, you're still working here. Oh my gosh. Eventually, Kimmy and Roy meet up to have sex as they usually do, but instead she goes in there and tells him that he's gonna tell her where her sister is. She calls him by his full name, as who he is, what he's connected to, yada yada yada. And he didn't know that she knew who he was. And basically they go back and forth and they start to tussle. She hits him with a bottle, but bottles are fake in shows and media, so he doesn't pass out, doesn't bleed, doesn't die. He just is like, I think bad. Eventually he's able to push her down long enough to kind of get himself settled. But once she gets up, she rushes him and pushes him out the window. That's funny. I'm sorry. It is. It's funny as hell. Episode 12, Hot Seat. So that probably dead. So she's like, okay, let's go back to another dead. house, Delinda, and see if I can find some more information. When she gets there, she hears Jules's crooked cops coming in to clean the body, and so she hides. They start doing expository dialogue about how they had bugged Angel when he went in to talk to Horace, but Angel was apparently wearing a scrambler. I don't know what that is. And also, if he does have one, when did he get that? Where did he get that? I guess it was next to the shotgun. And then they're like, yeah, that bitch crazy. We shouldn't have took her sister. That's crazy. So Horace wants to know the whole story of how they got caught up with Jules from Angel. And he tells him that. But after having this conversation and hearing his whole sob story of how they ended up there and how he has a child and he wants to, just provide a better life for his child, Horace is like, you lucky I got a crush on you, because if I didn't, I'd kill you. I'd hate to kill you, your pretty ass. And then he just walks away. And so Angel runs, because what the Varney, really concerned that Roy is going around telling people that he was his wife, goes to Charles and tells him about it. And Charles doesn't believe that it's a lie. He's like, oh, you my sister-in-law. And he's like, no, what the hell? And so he's like, it's cool. I'm not jealous. I'm in the middle of somebody else anyway. You should leave my apartment unless you just want to hear it. And then he goes back and has gay sex with the sound of pounding moans and flesh. Pounding moans? What? He was like, you can stay if you want to listen. And so he audio cucks him. And that's okay. But Varney stays. Angel, still handcuffed, makes his way back to the motel. And for some reason, he has the keys to them in his bag. Kimmy's there. She gets him released from that just in time, because that's when Jules shows up looking for her. Kimmy goes to hide, and Jules is looking around and is real suspenseful, like, ooh, is he gonna find her? And then he shoots the bed thinking she's under it, but luckily she was in the closet. Trapped in the closet. I'm so happy he can't read, because that means that he probably couldn't read a contract. So if I started watching Trapped in the Closet again, he ain't making not a dime. I hope you somewhere singing your blues, bitch. Anyway, trapped in the closet, I'm pulling out my Beretta. Anyway, sorry. R. Kelly. Anyway, Kimmy tells Rain that she pushed Roy out of the window. In the middle of that conversation, Horace comes into Rain's room, threatening her. I don't know why. I'm very confused. I think he went in there expecting Rain to give a bunch of information about Kimmy, but I don't know why he felt the need to threaten her to do so. You just heard a bunch of shit from Angel. Either you trust it or you don't. He pokes her bad ass with his cane so that she spills everything that she knows about Kimmy, which is wild. She's also still on the phone with Kimmy, so she hears this. And I thought this was gonna be a big thing where Kimmy goes to Horace and starts fighting him because he hurt her friend. No. Rain don't even give a after this, which is wild. I'm very confused why we even had this scene. I think maybe they forgot to edit it out, honestly, but that's what it feels like. So she runs out of the hotel going to visit Rain, and she is tackled by the crooked cops, one of the crooked cops, the black one. He takes her, planning to take her to see Jules. Charles calls Mallory, there's more man ass, and invites Mallory out to a strip club to talk. I don't know why. She don't strike me as the type of bitch that would be interested. She's like, no, we can meet at a restaurant back at the club. This is when Angel is backstage, dick and ass, and he ends up talking to another dude who tells him about how the guy that robbed Charles got blown up in the car. And he's like, that's crazy. But you know what's funny? He must be rich as so let's try to rob him, even though the last guy that just tried to rob him got blown up. Wild. He's like, I got his address. Let's try to make something shake. Angel, you want to get over here and rob that? He's like, no. Not even because the dude got blown up last time, but because you left me hanging. Apparently he was supposed to work with him with the heist against Horace. That's wild. Charles, still at home with his date leaving, and he sees him out. And Varney's still there, and he's pissed. He got cucked for telling the truth, which is wild. But he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I thought I lost you. I thought you died. I lost my mind. Again, so he says, but whatever. He's like, I love you. And Charles is like, no, that's not enough. You got to tell my family that we're together. And he's like, okay, I'll do that. But if that's the case, we're in a monogamous, committed relationship. And he don't want to do that. Me to ruin my job, essentially, ostensibly. But you don't even want to be in a monogamous relationship. You don't even want to not other people. But granted, this is still a problem of your own making, because your ass just had to the boss's son. That is so weird. The client's son. Both of y'all are a mess. He's like, I don't want to be controlled. I don't want to be possessed. I'm not one of your possessions. You. And I guess that's fine as long as I'm not Mallory, but the moment you thought I did is all shit. Eventually Mallory does meet up with Charles, and while that happens, Jillian is still having her whole victim complex with Calvin about how Calvin used her to get to Mallory. Again, bitch, who are you? Who are you? I'm so serious. This bitch is a non-character. I'm losing my mind. She isn't important in any major way. She is not a catalyst, but she keeps speaking as if she's like she has so many cards. Like, bitch, who are you? Anyway, Charles starts talking to Mallory about Varney, like, hey, did you actually sleep with him? And she was like, no, your brother's walking around saying that because your brother's a idiot. And that seems to be good enough for him. He actually believes that. She was like, what type of person do you think I am? I mean, she would cheat on her husband, but not with Varney, even though she tried to, but she can't because he's gay. Whether or not I wanted to is another story, but I did not. Anyway, the episode ends with Kimmy in the car with one of the crooked cops driving presumably to see Jules, and she pepper sprays him. Where did she get that? You could have used that several times up until this point, but okay. But she pepper sprays him while he's driving so that they swerve onto like an overpass and nearly falls over. Whatever. A fucking mess. Episode 13, By Any Means. The car has flipped over. That does not stop Kimmy from spraying him in the face again. And I'm like, bitch, you are so close to that. That will backsplash. But she's able to get away by waving down a woman who seems concerned for her, who is nice enough to like stop her car to get them help. But while she's kind of like assessing the situation, Kimmy steals her car and runs away. Eventually, the cop is able to survive right before the car falls over the lower road. But damn, one hell of a night. They can't be paying you enough. Mallory calls Jules, asks again who Roy is. At this point, this is like 48% of her lines at this point. I can't mention it every time, but this time I believe is kind of important because she says she hasn't been able to contact him for a few hours and she wants to know who he's with. So he calls the cop. And eventually he ends up telling her that he's at a particular hotel. The cop ends up telling Jules that Kimmy got away. And he's like, God damn it. It's like a thing all the time with that bitch, ain't it? So Mallory says to Calvin, come with me. We go into the hotel to find her husband. Charles goes to the club. And the dude that didn't get exploded, the other one that's like, hey, we should probably rob him now, you know, he recognizes him and goes over, and he's kind of trying to talk Charles up, and he's like, hey, the last person that stole from me got blown up. I got a Bentley too if you want to die. And since he kind of shushed him away, Angel tells the dude like, hey, let it go, it's not worth it. Obviously, again, the last dude got exploded. Now that Body's dead, there is a new character that we have that is very annoying, presumably to kind of take that place of sorts, that role of being annoying. Her name is Felicia, I believe. She has red hair. She is bringing in this random child into the back of the strip club. This is Sylvie. They have also drugged her. And once Angel recognizes her, he takes her and steals her away from everybody else and hides her in a closet so that they can't make her dance. He's like, stay here. I'm a friend of your sister. I'm going to find your sister. We're going to get you out of here. Back at the hotel, Mallory goes to the hotel, can't find her husband. Lo and behold, she finds out that the done fell, not to the floor 20 stories down, but actually just on the patio of the next floor. So lucky him, because he's not dead, surprisingly. And upon finding out that he's still alive, Mallory goes, God damn it. She doesn't want Calvin to call the hospital or to know anything about it. And she's like, just carry his boneless body. We'll take him to the hospital that we have very close political ties with, essentially. We bought a wing because we want to keep this private in case he fell over in a drug bender, which is her suspicion. She doesn't know that he was pushed out the window. She doesn't want it to be found that he died of an overdose or actions that he did during intoxication, because that is another way that they lose their shares. And at this point, it's interesting because this will that the grandfather made is now retroactively being able to use to create any motive retroactively. So like, if we need to say why someone's doing anything, we're like, well, because it's in the will. Like, if he doesn't do it in the will, so instead she has Calvin take him via the stairs into the parking lot below, and they drive him to the hospital, and she's like, hey, slow down, we ain't gotta go that fast. You're lucky I'm not going to get my nails done. Kimmy goes to find Rain and doesn't fight Horace because, again, the last thing she knew, he was torturing her best friend, and they're like weirdly Like, not completely neutral, but it's not as aggressive as I would expect her to be in that circumstance, you know? But he basically says to her, I didn't know nothing about the money laundering scheme and the trafficking and shit. I knew nothing about that. And instead, if we work together, we could do something that benefits both of us. Kimmy is like, I want my sister first. I don't give a what you talking about. And he's like, I will help you get her. But if we do this together, we can get Norman, the dude that you're really being trafficked by, essentially, because he's Jules's boss. We can kick him out of the will. Then, for some reason, unprovoked, she tells him that she killed Body, Delinda, and Roy. Horace is like, if you killed Roy at the hotel, theoretically, we would have heard something about it. So I don't think he's dead. And just incidentally, in comes, coincidentally, a doctor saying like, hey, your son is here, Mr. Bellery. He fell out of a window, but he is still alive and is being stabilized currently. And then Horace is like, damn, if you was gonna kill him, you could have did a good job. So he goes in to Roy, who is currently barely conscious, and is like, damn, if you was gonna try to kill yourself, you should have did it. But all you do is talk about it. You done talked about it 4 different times. Just do it. You're like, get it right this time. You've been doing this shit since you were 8. Finish the job. I'm like, again, great parenting on all directions. Rain comes out of surgery. I assume she was in surgery because she had injuries from him beating her bad booty with his cane, but she doesn't seem very upset about it. She's like, oh, it's cool. I'm cool with him. And she, to such an extent that she's like, I think you should work with Horace. He seems cool. But before she can fully wrap her head around that, Angel is calling her saying that he found her sister at the club. So she's like, okay, I gotta go get my sister. Peace. So she rushes back to the club, and Angel is sitting there getting grilled by one of the crooked cops that's working security, and he start punching him, but Kimmy is there to stop it. And that's like an abrupt ass end to the episode. Very awkward. Episode 14, Wild Ride. I wanna get wild, wanna drive you crazy. Pull up inside your baby. It up like oops days. Okay, I'm gonna stop doing that. They're waiting for Kimmy at the club. Jules and everybody. So things are about to get very real. Mallory, okay, I could skip this scene, but it's kind of interesting and funny in the whole conversation we're having around Tyler Perry and sexuality of all parts of the spectrum, because Mallory and Roy are arguing in the hospital again. She's basically saying like, oh, don't give him drugs because he already has such a high tolerance from being a druggie. And eventually he turns to the doctor, a female doctor, and he's like, do you hate your husband? And she's like, well, I have a wife and I love her very much. And Roy's response to that is, that's gross.
You hate your husband?
I have a wife that I love.
Well, that's gross.
If you want to be very, very obtuse, you could say, oh, maybe it's like he just finds it gross that spouses love each other. But I'm like, I feel like lesbophobia is the obvious choice here. Also, as the only canon lesbian relationship in this entire show, it's also not on camera, but at least it's happy. I don't know. But eventually, Mallory takes his phone and finally discovers the woman that he's been having an affair with, Kimmy. And I guess that's the only woman, which is strange. When you think of this type of person, there would be a lot of people, but he's only having an affair with Kimmy, who he does not like. We've never seen him enjoying the experience with Kimmy, so I don't. And when she finds this, she finds information about her being at the club that Charles invited her to in the last episode. So she's like, okay, I guess I'll make a little trip over because I want to see who this Kimmy bitch is. Horace goes to church, and while in the sanctuary, he calls Varney, telling him to bring their entire legal team to the hospital. And Varney takes this opportunity to tell him about Roy spreading the rumor that he had been having sex with Mallory. And he's like, don't worry, I know that you didn't do that because, quote, I see everything even when you think I don't. And I think this is alluding to him saying, I know a gay when I see one as a gay personally, though I don't want to admit that to myself. And I was like, again, I don't think Tyler Perry doesn't believe in lesbians or bisexuals. Those are not a thing. Unprovoked, Norman stakes out guys who were working with Olivia. The dude that Olivia killed in the bag, like a rotisserie chicken. The guys that work with him, Norman decides to stake them out. Unprovoked. I don't know why. I don't know how he knows who these people are, but he does it. But he hears them talking about Olivia and how she was trying to rob Horace. I'm looking at my notes and I'm so confused. I think it's just the show. But now he knows this information and he's like, oh, okay, my ex-sister-in-law is doing some crazy shit. Mallory comes into the club looking for Charles. This is the scene with the dude that just has his dick It's like, look, what the Unprovoked, he is a side person, but he made an impression, I guess. What the Anyway, she goes to see Charles, and she says, I'm here looking for whoever Roy is having sex with, and she apparently works here. So she goes up to Felicia, and she's like, do you know this girl? Some girl named Kimmy. And she's like, yeah, I know her, but she's not here right now. In the midst of this conversation, Felicia recognizes Mallory as the quote woman from the perm box and tries to touch her lob. That's insane. That's crazy work. Don't do that. Horace tells Kimmy that he's gonna help break her little sister out of the club, like a stealth mission, which is very confusing because you're so rich and influential. Also, you know this, you could break this whole shit down. You could just go up to whoever's up front and be like, I own this shit. But he's like, no, we're going to do a bust out. We're going to do a secret operation to get her out. So he goes to the back with the orgies, and they ask him like, hey, who do you want? And he insinuates that he wants a child, and she's young. So they're like, okay, we'll bring her. Apparently they found her in the closet. Norman finds Debo. I thought he was dead, but apparently he's not. Maybe I got lost. I know. But he finds Debo trying to make sure he had something to do with his wife. But Debo, for some reason, is keeping up this story of him killing the woman on the road, running her over. Debo is like, really like, yeah, I did it. I did these things. Like, I am on drugs. I rob people. I got a problem. Okay. And then Norman kills him because like, what the I don't, girl, whatever. Felicia brings out Sylvie for Horace, and the crooked cop that got flipped over in the car, he sees her and he's like, yeah, this is payback for Kimmy. I'm cool with like child sex trafficking because it gets back at your big sister. Like, weirdo. But instead of that, he drives through the front gate and saves Sylvie, but Kimmy gets caught in the lookout by Jules and forced back into the club. That was a rough one. Holy shit. Episode 15, The Lion's Den. Norman goes to Olivia's home under the impression that Debo killed his wife and goes to Olivia to apologize for trying to kill Charles in retaliation. Norman is like, I know you tried to steal from Horace's stash house, and he admits that after torturing Debo, he believes he did actually kill his wife. Anyway, he apologizes, and she still seems pretty much ready to go to war because you tried to kill my boy, and she's gonna do what is necessary to get her revenge while maintaining her shares. And she's like, I'm able to do it because I'm a woman. And then she grabs a titty and tells him to leave. I don't get it either. Jules is mad at Kimmy for busting out Sylvie, so he tells Felicia to beat her ass. And while that's happening, in comes Horace, the big boss. And everything stops, and he says, let Kimmy go. And then she leaves after punching Felicia in the face one good time. Good for her. Kimmy goes outside, finds her sister. She's passed out. She's like, she needs to go to the hospital. I don't know what they drugged her with. And so she does exactly that. In the middle of having his conversation with Jules about what's been going on at this place, Horace starts getting quite sick. In the middle of the conversation, as you know, Jules is trying to create weird stories about why he's working there and what he's been doing and how he's trying to protect the family, yada yada. But Horace can't hear it because he's getting very, very sick. He even loses control of his bladder, and he leaves, asking Angel to take him to the hospital. Everybody going to the hospital. Now, this scene, truly horrifying. If it were out of context, if it weren't in this complete convoluted piece of shit, this scene is actually horrifying. And if it was acted better, it would be horrifying. But even still, it's wild. Kimmy's driving Sylvie to the hospital, and Sylvie looks behind her, and it's just a random white man in the back seat with his eyes wide open, just staring at her. And because she's drugged, she's tweaking. And Kimmy's like, there's nobody back there. She was like, why is he looking at me? Why is he looking at me? And I'm like, oh, baby. Scared Russich. I'm sorry. Mommy's okay. She's not having a breakdown. I'm just reenacting things. I'm sorry. And Kimmy thinks she's just hallucinating from all the drugs, but eventually she does look behind him, and there is indeed a white man in the back seat. That does not make her acknowledge it. She just still takes her to the hospital and just leaves his ass in the back seat. Jules tells Norman that Horace knows about the operation now, so that's a big deal. And he's like, oh, he might use that information to get me out of the shares. Angel brings Horace to the hospital, and while there, he goes to talk to Rain. And that bitch been in the hospital the whole show. And while they're there, they end up seeing a news report of a woman pleading for her father to be returned to her because he has dementia and diabetes, and he was in the back seat of the car when she got robbed. That is the white man who is dead, by the way, in the back seat. And Angel was like, what the f? Anyway, there's a lot of revelations, I'm going to skip the specifics because I just realized I'm getting myself confused. Long story short, the family starts to have a lot of realizations about Jules and his operation, mainly that he is a pimp, and also that Roy has been working with him and has been doing something nefarious as well at the clubs, i.e. working with having sex with sex workers. There you go. I don't know why I was trying to think of a harder word than that. And he's like, I'm not losing my shares over this. Episode 16, Now Make It Thunder. This is the final episode of the season. So how is this all going to culminate into one incredible story? Well, Kimmy visits Horace in the hospital and he tells her that he wants to marry her. Not for love, but because he doesn't want his family to get his shares if he dies. He'd prefer to marry her and she get his shares. And ultimately, if she were to get all his shares, the lion's share of the company, she becomes their boss. She's like, just so you know, I killed 2 people. And he's like, yeah, we can hide that. It is small. And considering the shit our family does, that's really not that big of a deal. And I'll send over, my people so that you know everything that you need to know. I'm bringing my lawyers in and we can do this shit in the hospital. Angel tells Kimmy while she's in the lobby that he saw a report about the dude in the back of the car and tells her to lay low and just hang out with Sylvie instead, and he'll go look at the car. I don't know why he offered to do that, but eventually he gets taken in by police because he was around with the car that was stolen and had a dead body now in the back seat. So bye, Angel. We don't see him for the rest of the episode. See if he in season 2. Kimmy talking with Sylvie. Sylvie has a lot of resentment for Kimmy because she has a history of lying to her. She was like, you lied about a bunch of things. You lied about this. You lied about being a nurse. You left me with mom and that man who assaulted me sexually every day. She isn't ready to forgive Kimmy for that. And she's like, I'm just doing what I have to do to try to make us have a better life. And if I do end up marrying Horace, that could happen. Olivia, incidentally, happens to be at the hospital giving a tour to her church because, she real holy when people are none the wiser. She prefers to, give the air of being a Christian while being one of the most deplorable human beings you've ever met. She's given a tour when she's confronted by the lawyer and the cancer thing, and she serves her with a class action lawsuit. And so Olivia kind of tells the people in the tour to kind of run along. She has some conversations to have with this woman. And so she smashes the lawyer's head in a wall and slaps her like 3 times. And the lawyer's like, I'm gonna sue you for $10 million. She slaps her and be like, make it 20 million. Slaps her again, make it 30. And eventually, when the lawyer finally retaliates, she's like, you done it now. I'm gonna edit this shit and it shows you assaulting an old frail woman, you dirty bitch. And she quickly edits a clip of her getting slapped, and it's on such a quick loop. It is hilarious. Wow. But eventually, Olivia ends up finding out the Horace is in the hospital, but the doctors aren't letting her come in. Instead, they let Kimmy and Sylvie come in. So she ends up asking Norman what's going on with Horace. And Norman's like, I don't know, but I hope it's bad if he's at the hospital. But she's like, no, I think he's talking to lawyers and stuff. I need you to come to the hospital. Something's going on. So eventually, all the family ends up coming to the hospital, and they won't let anyone in but Varney and all the lawyers that are coming to do whatever, Horace is trying to get done before he dies. And so Varney goes in, Rain is a witness, and Kimmy says that she will be his wife. And this is the proceedings to legally become his wife. Varney panics and goes to the rest of the family like he is trying to marry a random woman to dilute your shares. And so they all bum rush the door past security. And when they all get up to his bedside, Horace is like, hey, everybody, meet my new wife, your stepmother, and your new boss, Kimmy. And that's the end of the first season of Beauty in Black. An absolute cluster. This half is particularly confusing, convoluted mess. But again, it is, by all intents and purposes, good at being trash that you watch while getting your nails done. And I don't really require that it asks more of that. I think a lot of the convoluted parts you don't notice if you're not paying attention. And I do think that it's a show that's kind of made to not watch too closely. Honestly, it strikes me again as something to just have on while you're doing other things. And for that, it does that fine. It's already been approved for a second season. So whether we like it or not, it's coming back. And I'll be there. I'll be there. I'll be there. When there is trash, I'll be there. I'll be there. But yeah, that's all for today, folks. I hope you like this video. Follow me on all my social media, Instagram and Bluesky, both of which are KennieJD. And I will see you guys next time.